Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Welcome
back
to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all for joining us tonight at this amazing hour. We are doing a very unique live show right now. So this is different. Boyce has gone ahead and he has introduced us to this new platform where he can record audio, display audio, and we can record an episode all at one time. So now you get to see our lovely little faces as well as hear our voices. So we are only broadcasting on Facebook right now, but we will shortly be able to do it on YouTube. And I don't know, we're going to test this format out, and if people like it, maybe that's what we'll do. Maybe we'll go ahead and do live videos where you can see three talking heads. Because the nice thing about this new platform, and that's why I wanted to test it on Facebook tonight, is we can actually share our screen so you can see what it looks like or what articles we're talking about. So every time, we go, hey, go to the links section and reference, this and that, we can actually just pull the bloody thing up on screen. So anyway, without further ado, welcome to episode 194, part 1. Joining me tonight is our guest co-host, Boyce from the Mindful Skeptics podcast, as well as new co-host, Buddy the Elf. How are you tonight, sir?
But I'm sorry, Buddy the what?
You're an elf now. You're an elf from Canada. I don't know. I just decided to change your name and everything,
Motherfucker, I'm taller than you.
Doesn't mean you're still not an elf. And how would you know if you're taller than me? You've never met me in person.
I have a reason to believe you are shorter than I am.
Fair enough. Maybe not. But doesn't mean you still can't be an elf. You could be the elf on the shelf, the Canadian elf on the shelf. I mean, what do they call Canadian elf on the shelf and up there?
A guy with a sinus infection.
A guy with a sinus infection? Oh.
Yeah, he's reaching for the Kleenex. Come on.
Anyway, so we wanted to come live tonight. We do an actual, do a show live. We haven't done one of those in a long time, so we apologize if there's some errors or mistakes that happen. But we have a couple of...
gentle.
So we have... You see, you're already making it not even PC rated. So, now I got to turn the R rating on. Because all of his viewers are like, no, we can't handle that R-rated content there.
Whoops.
Anyway, you'll also be able to see how many times I get up and use the restroom or take a drink during the podcast. Because sometimes that happens like 3 or 4 times, because I have a small bladder lately. But without further ado... This is tight, yeah. Without further ado, let's talk about the show. So we started the show off in our pre-show. We were talking about what was that game that you were playing with your friends there, buddy?
Jackbox,
yeah. So we were talking a little bit about Jackbox, and the funniest thing was you bring it up and you're like, yeah, I say some very uncomfortable things. I was like, well, you've never played it with my family. And we have all these topics to cover, but at the exact same time, I feel this game is worthwhile having a conversation about, because if you want something that can help put a little bit of edge in your Thanksgiving, which is coming up here in a month, this is the game for you. Everybody can play it. It's pretty cheap. You can download it very, very cheaply on your computer and hook it up to your TV, and everybody can just use their cell phones to log in.
So sorry, you said Thanksgiving. Well, we've already had Thanksgiving. I think
American Thanksgiving
is American Thanksgiving when you serve up an American or a bald eagle. Is that when you deep fry one of them, or what's? I don't understand.
Yeah, well, we take the turkey, which is like a bald eagle, but because a bald eagle is too prestigious. It's like the flag. You don't burn the flag.
We have turkeys. I know what a turkey is.
But do you know what an American turkey is, though?
It's got 6 legs and it's on Fox NFL Sunday.
There you go, exactly. And the Lions always play, and it's like a tradition, no matter whether you're from Michigan or not. The Lions are always bloody on Thanksgiving. So
We started it.
we did.
Didn't start the fire. It was always burning.
And it is, and it's always a trash heap every time they play. It doesn't matter who they play, but it's always a trash heap. And the funniest thing is like when you look at how much tickets cost for that day, they're astronomical, but they almost always lose. So it's like it's just insane to me. So, but our Thanksgiving actually consists typically of the food, right, and the football game in the background, and then we also play Jackbox. And when they introduced this game, I don't think they realized some of my dark humor that comes out, because what was the name of that game that you were all playing, buddy?
I think it was Quip It?
Quip It, yes.
Quip It, no, Quip It Good. I don't know. There was a bad 80s song that kept playing in the background, Quip It Good or something. I don't know.
But they but that game has torn my family apart sometimes. It really has.
We call that Monopoly in the trailer park.
No, Monopoly is how you lose friends and create like another what the hell's the name of that family? McCoy,
Hatfield McCoys.
Hatfield McCoy. That's how you create those types of family long fights, is playing Monopoly. I'm sorry, there's no other way. And then Settlers of Catan is the same with friends. That's how you lose friends.
It is, because nobody likes to play that game with. That's the biggest problem. Yeah, everybody hates that.
Why does everybody insist on playing Catan? Because nobody likes playing Catan. I don't get it.
I love playing Catan, my friend.
I wasn't talking about
one
you.
of my favorite board games to play.
How?
No. How?
Yeah, like how do you enjoy it? Like, is it just the collective suffering of everybody around you that like soothes you and sustains you? Is that what's going on here?
It's like the competitive nature of it. That's why. It's a competitor of nature. No, nothing.
No. To me, man, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Well, either way, enough said about that.
I envy voice not to know what this is.
We're not here to talk board games this week, unfortunately. We're here to talk about a couple of other things. The first topic I thought was kind of interesting that came up was Google bought Fitbit for $2.1 billion.
That's fuck you money right there.
Yeah. Now think about this. What has Fitbit been collecting from all of us for, I don't know, I think the last at least 8 to 10 years?
All your data are belong to us. See, Tanner, that should have been the title of the episode.
All your
You're
data
welcome. All your data are belong to us.
All
right. There you go. But think of it, though. Google, who data mines you as it is, now owns your health information.
Yep.
That just seems very crazy to me. And, it's kind of funny because the NPR their article says they pledge to protect your health data. My ass, they do. I guarantee you, I'll be getting blood pressure medicine, ads showing up in my Chrome every time. It's just going to happen. It's going to be like, oh, do you need blood pressure medication? Let's use this one.
Well, this already happens. I mean, what's really interesting is that these algorithms that determine what flyers are sent to people, they can actually almost accurately predict if a woman's pregnant before even she knows. Because there are algorithms that say women who are pregnant statistically are more inclined to buy a specific bunch of items. And once those items are purchased and they can be traced to you, all of a sudden now you're paying these ads for like newborn diapers, newborn clothes and shit. I was listening to it on the Skeptics ad and it kind of fucking blew my mind.
But not for prenatal vitamins and birth control.
Also, well, prenatal vitamins, not the birth control, because it's kind of late for that.
A day late, $1 short, right?
So, I mean, it is already happening. I think this is just kind of a more obvious version of somebody's going to know how healthy you are. And I mean, I think there are going to be upsides to this. Like might be easier to track if there are specific regions where people are more prone to certain things, and we can kind of investigate like endemics, pandemics, shit like that. But overall, like the corporatization behind it, that's where I think we should be raising our skeptical heckles.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And that's the thing is, I mean, what are we going to do, and so I don't know, it's to me, it kind of says, what about this life, demands that we, have to share everything that we are, everything that we do. And I get it, to some extent it helps the market. And I think that's a philosophical question. We should be maybe around, December, we can have this conversation. But, like when we look at the difference between what they're collecting and what should be collected, some of me wonders, if we are moving too fast for our own good here. Are we moving so fast that people are buying into this, how do I get things faster? I mean, even look at Amazon. Amazon, to some extent, and I'll give a personal story here in a second from Halloween, but Amazon mines, or, whatever you want to call it, data mines all of my stuff. And I had to do some research, so I don't know if you saw our Facebook post, but I went as Arthur from The Tick, right? And my buddy went as a Tick. Spoon, exactly. And we thought it was a genius costume. Well, he wears a harness, right? Well, when you look up harness in Amazon, you get... you don't get harnesses that you would normally wear out in public. At least most people don't, at least.
Please tell me they said Big Daddy on it. Please tell me they said Big Daddy on it. Please tell me they said Big Daddy on it.
They don't.
What are we even talking about them for?
They're all leather bondage things.
Get out the gimp.
No, that's like full blown like latex suit. Why do I talk about this like I know something?
I don't know.
Distraction over here.
I don't know, but you do, and it's kind of awesome. But anyway, anyway, we have that, right? And here I'll bring up a picture of there's me as Arthur, and there's my buddy as Tick. And like I actually wore this to work, and I'm telling you, it was freaking like 40 degrees and sleeting and raining out when I went trick or treating with the kids. But there's me right there, and I don't know how to blow it up for the viewers, but there's me as, Arthur, right? And the funny thing with that, right, is that it was so cold, but I had to get that harness. So that black harness that you see there, they all came in leather, and they were all bondage ones. Like, there were all these bondage ones. It's like, now my Google comes up, and the funniest thing was my wife and I share the same, Amazon account, right? We share the same Amazon account. My Amazon account, she goes, Chris, what are you looking up? And I was like, I need a harness. She goes, yeah, I don't know if I'm into that with you or not. She's like, those look like gay guys, right? And I was like, yeah, I get that. And I was like, that was not the, what I was going for. I was like, I have nothing against them,
It's not the one I'm going for.
It's not typically Chris, but, I was just kind of like, well, here's the deal, honey. I have to, we have to have a conversation because I need this for my costume, but I can't find one. And then, ironically, I went to a Halloween store and some guy disassembled some other costume and gave it to me, right? And so he gave me this harness. And then he was like, I couldn't figure out how to put it on. And my wife's like, if you go to Amazon, they have tutorials. You can look at these tutorials. She's like, I bet your Google will tell you. Sure enough, my tutorial has, like, she says this, and then like it shows up in my Chrome, as in my Google searches, like as ads, like, learn how to put a harness on. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so awful. This is like the worst thing ever. Now my timeline is infiltrated with all of this stuff.
Now you have foreskin porn.
No, it's not horse anyway. But anyway, this is a long story short. It's just kind of funny because because we have that shows up. But let's take this all the way back to the Google buying Fitbit, right? They're buying Fitbit. We were. And think about it. It's again. We go back to what does this mean for the viewers, or for the people, right? And so they talk about, in here in this share dollar amount. So it's like $7.35 a share for this company. They talk about how they have, Google has been developing Wear OS and other softwares for smartwatches, but they just really want this. Some of me wonders if Google just paid for the data, right? Is that what they did?
Possible.
Maybe.
Well, data is the new oil. It's worth more than oil. So that's a significant investment in something that will pay dividends significantly later, if not instantly.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, look here you go. And that's a good point that it's the new oil, right? That's a good point. It says here that we understand that this is a big responsibility, and we're going to work hard to protect your information, put you in control, and give you transparency of your data. Similar to other products with wearables, we will be transparent about the data we collect and why. And we will also give Fitbit users the choice to review, move, or delete their data. Exactly. What about Facebook? What about, how many times have we had data breaches in the last, let's just say in the last year? I've been notified of 3 data breaches,
Yeah.
The Ashley Madison was not one for me, but, I've had other
and that was a couple of years ago.
Was it a couple of years ago by now? Anyway, but you know what I'm saying. Like I've had a couple of notifications saying, "Hey, here's this data breach. You might want to go, check it." I have a credit account that I got this free checking software that it goes through and tells me if there's anything that looks like a breach, and just the atrocity of them saying, their privacy guidelines will not change. Like I don't personally believe it. That's just me though.
Well, they're not going to be better than the banks protecting your money. Let's be real.
Basically, what I was saying was about how if all of a sudden your health is showing specific things like high blood pressure or high sodium or high this, that, whatever, and technology advances to the point where you can also keep your glucose readings for diabetics. And then all of a sudden, as those change, if people with specific conditions are showing these trends to buy specific products, then all of a sudden their ad metrics are going to be geared towards that too, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that happens all the time with us, to be honest.
Well, it does, but I think this is just going to help increase the targeted advertising because there's so much money to be made there.
Yeah. So how about this? And I guess, if you go to the bottom of the article, and I think you're right. I think that Google has created, a way to target and market in different fashion, right? And so, at the very bottom, they talk about state attorneys that are looking at a major probe on Google for their dominance over the competition, right? Mm-hmm. And in Europe, officials conducted a similar investigation, and they're looking to slap a multi-billion-dollar fine on the company for breaking antitrust laws. So the question becomes: do we need to get to the point where we got to delude the contract, make it so everybody understands what they're signing up for, and make it so that you can opt out of these things? I mean, if we want, where is capitalist America? Where is our conservative friends that and our libertarians that want to shout at the top of the lungs about the free market here? Why are they not more concerned about this data mine than anything else? I don't understand because
it's crucial to a free market as they envision it.
But it's not. It makes it worse to some extent.
Marketing. That's all it is.
So you think from a libertarian, we'll say from a conservative or libertarian perspective, that they're okay with this because even though it's invading your personal privacy, they're okay with it because of a marketing thing? I think that's the exact opposite. I mean, I have friends that have been libertarians for a long time, and they're very, very anti the idea of somebody taking their information and not having a free internet because of the fact that what if they want to look up donkey porn? I don't know. Maybe they're looking at donkey porn at night and they don't want anyone else to know.
This is a very specific example, Chris.
You've been watching Clerks lately?
Yes. Yes.
I was gonna turn it around and flip it on him. Projecting onto others, but that works.
No, you can't get the projection thing. No, I did watch Clerks recently, yeah. But I mean, think about it. You what's done in your privacy to some extent, as long as it doesn't harm somebody else, is yours. And I
agree.
But I'm confused why libertarians and Republicans, why conservatives are not more up in arms about this. And they don't want regulations, and so what is the way around that? We'll create big fines.
Because this isn't governmental regulations. This is just a company that's proving that it has more ability to be profitable.
I guess.
Isn't that what it's more about?
I don't know. Boyce,
if you just worked hard and pulled yourself up by your bootstraps.
Boyce, what do you think?
Where do you go from there?
Up.
Like I said before, data is the new oil of the 21st century. And we should look at data as precious as oil is today is what it should be tomorrow times 10, because there's an unlimited amount of data when there is a limited amount of oil, where they've used this already to manipulate us with ads, to manipulate us with other marketing tools as well. Also with information sharing, they track every little thing we Google search, every search. And so we should have more freedoms from the libertarian point of view. This would be sellable to say we should have more freedom to decide who can and cannot sell our data. You should be able to opt in and be paid for it personally. It's your own personal information, it's your information. You should be able to have more control over it, have freedom to decide who can use it and who can't. And if they do opt in to let them use it, you should get compensated for that. Like they said in their thing, we're going to try and give you the option. Okay, we'll give you the option to opt in and give me some money, asshole.
Yeah.
Libertarian speaking. That's how I see it from that point of view. I'm a little more libertarian on that.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll agree I'll agree a little bit to say, yeah, I guess if they're going to do this, why not make money on it? You're right. I mean, if we talk about, like Andrew Yang has UBI, right? Well, if we did this and started billing these companies for it, could you essentially give UBI to people for even more discounted rate? I mean, if he wants to give $1,000 to everybody, I mean, you want to data mine me, fine, go, you know what, fine, have all my creepy, crazy harness lookings and, my blood pressure medications that you want to sell me, as long as it means that, I could get another $400 a month in income. I mean, for $400 a month in income, you know what I can get? I can get a new car. I could pay for my kids'
health insurance.
I have health, but
it should be universal. But
yeah, that's a different argument.
Well,
there.
yes, but I'm just thinking in the immediate vicinity right now.
Yeah.
If suddenly you were to have an extra $400 a month.
Yeah. But that's how I see data is it's a resource that is ours. And it's a privacy issue from a libertarian point of view. I think as a libertarians would think that you should be able to control what you are and who you are, and all your information should be private. Then you should be compensated for the use of it, because you can't get in these things without opting in. You can't say no, thank you. You just can't be a part of it. So they force you into opting in, and that gives them the right to steal your data pretty much and manipulate it and sell it multiple times.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's an interesting point, and I think there's a deeper discussion we could have at some point here. But I mean, for me, the big thing is it's not exciting that Google announced that they're buying Fitbit.
No,
I honestly am not, for these larger monopolies that are popping up everywhere. That's just not me. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not excited by it, and I'm hoping that maybe we can change directions here with some more antitrust law and some higher fines, because I don't know how else you curb this capitalist environment without aggressive tactics to start fining people. Either you create laws that they violate, or you create laws that they violate and then you either imprison them or fine them. I don't know any other way to go about that. I just don't. With that being said, though, we have a little bit more interesting topic. Recently released was some Voyager 2 papers that were written, and it's kind of funny that I don't remember if the two of you were on when we did a discussion about Voyager 2 passing. I don't remember if we. I think that was before the two of you joined the show, but we've Han and I always loved Voyager 2. We've always loved the the space side of things. We've had on the show a couple of times a professor from down in Florida who actually worked for NASA and helped develop space cameras. And he joined the show a couple of different times, talked about some of his different inner workings that he had with NASA. And the Voyager 2 is just something that's to me is very, very interesting, because if we're ever going to get to the status or the state of Rick and Morty, we have to have enough of these damn satellite things getting passed into interstellar space to discover more life somewhere else. Otherwise, Rick and Morty is nothing but a sham. You know.
Comes back to Rick.
Is that how that works? Is that how that works?
It does, because Rick
He
and
knows
Morty
everything, you know nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And so, anyway, so there was an article that Astronomy released that talks about the final results of Voyager 2 passing into interstellar space. And there's actually papers. There was actually 5 papers that were written over the course of the last, I don't know, I think year is what it was, that are now all being published, talking about the different things that have been discovered as it's leaving space. So, have any of you heard about this at all? It's just it's pretty recent news, but
no.
I have to say no, because I don't think I've got the details right.
All right, fair enough. So some of the things they talk about is some particles that were blowing out of the sun, and that was like, for me, that was the most interesting part, because I can't even imagine a gaseous giant having particles blowing out of it. I mean, to me, that just seems crazy, right? I mean, if you're a gaseous giant that's burning everything up that comes into place, how is particles coming out of the other side of it?
Magic.
It's not
physics.
It was magic.
It's not magic. This is not ICP here. Magnets are not magic, my friend.
I thought that was Mormonism, but gross.
Well, that too. But have you not heard of that ICP?
Well,
no. Have you not heard that?
I know that
ICP
they
song?
did their whole trolling. No,
it's not trolling. It was serious for them.
Wait, you know what the Insane Clown Posse were promoting magnets?
They were talking about how they're magic, basically.
Posse is the worst thing that ever exists on planet Earth. Anytime.
Exactly. Yeah,
I don't know about the worst thing, but I definitely think they're up there.
I've
got a few songs that are obnoxious enough that I'm like, I can enjoy this.
Don't ever show me Insane Clown Posse again, Tanner. I'm out.
What? You can't be out. You can't be out. I'm sorry. You asked for it. You asked for it.
I know there's going to be a music video there. I thought there's going to be some stupid ad about magnets.
Way to blame the victim,
No.
Tanner.
No, it should hurt you. It should hurt you. This is like one of the worst videos. The worst part about the whole ICP thing is like they went to this whole Christian stuff. Like, so not only does this music video seem crazy to me, but they went Christian with it. I just can't believe you've never heard of it. Anyway, so long story short, let's move away from that.
They don't understand how magnets work.
They don't. They think it's magic. And, again, when we talk about some of these things that we don't understand as concepts, a lot of people do chalk that up. I mean, we've had that conversation on the show more than one time, especially with, like, Hannah did a debate on evolution with Aaron Furlong years ago.
Yeah, that made me want to bounce my skull off concrete listening to him. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. And it's funny, I don't even know where he is anymore. I don't even think he's on Facebook. But anyway, so, NASA has, They obviously, this is an amazing discovery, and they talk about they're interested in what's called a heliopause, because a heliopause is something that I don't think there has been a lot of research into, right? And I don't know if you've ever heard of a heliopause before, but they talk about it as like a theoretical boundary where the sun's solar wind is stopped by some sort of an interstellar medium. So think of it like it expands and then it hits some sort of a barrier.
So they're saying the particles from the sun are not escaping its own solar system?
Yes. And so what they're seeing is they're starting to see the different interactions inside of space, and they're actually looking at what's a boundary versus what's not a boundary. And are these magnetic fields pulling these particles back into different sides of the heliopause, is what they call it, which is actually a really awesome name for electronic band, Heliopause. I think we should start something new. We'll call it Yang Gang's Heliopause or something like that. I don't know.
My people.
But when you talk about it, you think about it. When you were leaving the solar system, and it's leaving our solar system. and they talk about, the different field directions, the magnetic field directions inside of this heliosphere. It's very, very interesting. And this is something they haven't been able to study a lot. So when a star explodes, right, it spews their magnetic fields into the surrounding areas. So think about it this way. And this is this is a little bit over my understanding of science sometimes. But, think about if you took a magnet and you exploded it, would that magnetic dust remain in the air? How does that work? And not to paraphrase ICP, I don't understand honestly how that would work. But essentially that's what's happening inside of these different solar systems. And the Voyager 2, the surprise particles that are actually leaking out of this heliosphere, which they have not seen before, we just sit there and you go, well, that's amazing. Like, what does that mean? What does that mean? Will that help us in inner space travel, right? I doubt it. But, what does that mean for how when planets explode or when suns, the stars explode, what does that mean for affecting the rest of the galaxies? And is there some sort of like an interaction that can happen with some of the other chemicals that could create, and again, I'm leaping here to like a Big Bang type thing. Does that help trigger some of that?
Well, it's got to have an interaction, first of all. They're elements, and there's these properties are going to interact with each other. We just don't understand how. Why are these particles being reflected back or pulled back by an unseen force? Is it magnetism? Is it some other thing we don't understand about dark matter or string theory? All these different things that could possibly explain the future we don't understand right now. Maybe string theory could help shed some light on that interstellar kind of relationship between the boundaries of our solar system's reach as far as magnetism with the sun. It's interesting though. So it keeps Pluto and Halley's Comet in orbit somehow, which is weird.
Gravity, man.
But Halley's Comet, 76 years? That's a hell of a run.
Exactly, yeah. And that's the interesting thing, and that's the interesting thing here, right? They're released 5 different articles, which of course are behind paywalls. But they're talking about actually measuring.
Money too.
But that's what the government's for. But they have, it's interesting to as they learn these new things, and I think we don't do enough science segments on the show. But when we talk through some of these different things, especially with the difference between the Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. What happens when they cross these different fields is we're getting these different interactions. We're getting a different take on what could be or could not be going forward in the future. And I think this adds a new level to if these particles are escaping. I mean, we talk about alien or foreign particles. I mean, did our solar system have some of these come into it? Is that how some of this formed at some point? I don't know. I just think it's very interesting to discuss personally.
Voyager 1's the one that took the photo of the blue dot, right? The tiny blue dot.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I need to go listen to Sagan.
Oh, yeah. I got a buddy who named his kid Sagan. That's pretty cool.
Nice.
Exactly.
I made a friend on a beach in Mexico because I was sitting there reading Demon Haunted World.
Too close.
I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around this. It is a really interesting bunch of science. I mean, it's hard to rule out, like external forces from our solar system shaping what's gone on. And I mean, they've found particles of from Earth on the moon that happened after the moon was formed.
Right.
Suggesting that, there was an extraterrestrial object that came in and hit the Earth and then sent some of the particulate up to the moon there.
Yep.
Which I think is utterly fascinating, and how our ecosystem is, while local, you take a step back and you realize how many external forces can come in and play around and mess things up and transference and all of that. It's just, I mean, it is absolutely mind blowing, and maybe I'm just having one of those absolute fog brain not quite functioning moments, but it is kind of mind blowing to think about that.
Well, and also, who's to say that maybe life didn't begin on Mars or the moon and came here by a trajectory bouncing off, and spewing whatever comes from Mars, because it shows they had rivers and they had possibly microorganisms that could have planted the life seeds here.
Yeah. But does this affect the possibility of life being seeded, or does it kind of make that even harder for life to be transferred from outside of the solar system? You know what I mean?
Oh, it sounds harder, definitely. I think evolution makes more sense. But
I mean, I'm all for like the whole panspermia thing. That doesn't bother me so long as it could be proved to have happened, which, as far as I know, it hasn't. So there's that.
That's a hard one.
So Voyager 2 left interstellar space on December 10th last year.
Cool.
I
it's been almost a year.
How it broke that barrier and took a picture back at our solar system to show our sun was a dot way in the, in the distance, of course. That's our sun, which means they couldn't see us at all.
Right. No, we're nothing.
We are, dust, compared to the sun. Was it 1,000 sun? Earth is the circumference of the sun?
Well, yeah, I think that's what it is. I'm not 100%
I think it's about
sure.
1,000.
It's possible.
So we're 1,000 times smaller than the sun in that picture.
Yeah, but like you said, I mean, that's, to me, these are the interesting things. I mean, this is what science shows. This is not what religion shows sometimes. And I think, one of the big thing here is as we see these different, satellites and things travel, and we see all these different ships move, and what does that mean for us? And all I can say is, if it puts another piece, like, I'm not here to say, hey, in religion terms, we should be worried about, whether I can disprove your religion or not. We should be more worried about, what does science tell me, and how can I get to a more complete knowledge, right? And we've had anti-evolution people on our show before.
Yeah, I heard.
And hence our old debate. But, it's just the discussion behind it, though, is still very keen to me. And, like, I find it pointless to have this presuppositional debate. Like, I find that the most pointless of it when it comes to discussing the science. That's just me, though. That's just me saying that. The big thing for me, though, is what does that tell us about our future in terms of putting more of those pieces together? So if evolution has, let's say, 80% of the pieces put together, and we can theorize about the other 20%, what does this new discovery help, do for us, right? I mean, in the Heliopause, again, maybe I'm just saying that and speculating. I don't know how much, honestly, it buys into the evolution of everything, right? But I feel that this actual piece of that puzzle where we could see the particles move from different solar systems. You're getting alien material that could help spark or simulate something. And maybe that's why we don't see life on other planets as much, right? Because none of those other things have happened to create an atmosphere that allows for habitual or habitable life to live.
Right, because the Earth's magnetic field shields us from the solar radiation that would otherwise rip our atmosphere apart, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And incoming trajectory as far as like asteroids and meteorites as well.
Yeah. So think of it. If we can figure out how to use that boundary, right, and we can figure out how to do these different things, I mean, to me, it's just insane that, it doesn't somehow play into them being, a different way of understanding how evolution and adaptation works. I don't know. I don't know. I think it's interesting, at least.
It's fun to think about.
It's very interesting, Tanner.
I did. Another interesting thing that I thought we should talk about tonight was Elizabeth Warren has released her plan for Medicare for all.
Oh, really?
And I know, that's the last topic of the show. Now, I won't tell you it's this full in-depth plan, because she's not going to share. There it is, right here. She's not going to give you 100% of the details, but she is going to actually explain how she wants to pay for Medicare for all. Obviously, the two of you did not read the article.
Well, I was eating when you sent them, so there's that.
All right.
So it looks like a big part of the way she's going to be able to do it without raising tax on the middle class is basically to increase the wealth tax and corporate taxes, correct?
Yes, if we want to get down to the nutty grits of that whole thing, she's
Wow, nutty
right,
grits.
I don't know.
I like
That's my
grits,
PC. All right. Well, do you like nuts in your grits?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you. So it still stands. Whether you want to take it pervertedly or not, it still stands. Dumbass.
No, I actually wasn't even going perverted. I was just like, that doesn't work. That's not how that phrase goes. The nitty gritty. Come on,
it is
Canadian knows this, Tanner.
Well, I want to be Canadian because I'm from Michigan. So she wants to raise the wealth tax 3%, which again does not honestly that doesn't even sound like a lot. And the funny thing is a lot of people are going to debate this, but there was a meme that went around, right? And this meme basically says if you're that worried about the wealth tax because you think at some point you're going to be a millionaire, you have a better shot at getting killed in a car accident than you do of ever becoming a millionaire in today's society. And I always call it like the Republicans, I call it the Republicans gambling gamut, right? Because you're wagering on not having to pay more taxes for the wealthy on the fact that you're going to become wealthy someday. And the probability is so low. It's just another facet of gambling. That's all it is.
Yeah, I don't have that fear.
One of my favorite
I don't either.
quotes out there is socialism never took root in America because the poor see themselves not as an exploited proletariat, but as temporarily embarrassed millionaires. That was John Steinbeck. But it's perfect. And do you guys remember Futurama?
Yeah.
You guys remember when Fry said, yeah, but I might be one of them, so to hell with guys like me?
Exactly.
That is the perfect way to demonstrate that mindset.
Well, my problem with this whole wealth tax thing is you're depending on this only successful if everyone reports everything they have. And I really find that hard to believe that people are going to be like, oh, sure, go through all my shit and I'll tell you everything. And I'm not going to hide anything overseas. I'm not going to be compelled to move all my shit overseas. I'm compelled to fucking move out of this country,
Right, and that's absolutely part of the problem too, is then finding those tax loopholes and ways that corporations are able to kind of shell out and hide away their money. This is something that really drives me nuts about one of the conservative family members that I have, is because they're diehard conservative, yet they can't stand the fact that they're this guy who used to be their boss hides his money in smaller corporations. Mm-hmm. And he goes, yeah, figures it fucking do that. I'm like, you support the fucking people who endorse that. They are okay with that. And if that asshole actually paid his proper amount of taxes, guess what? Yours wouldn't ever go up. You would get better services, and that asshole would be footing the bill, or he'd be helping to pay his fair share because he gets to make more off of the labor of other people. But apparently that is crazy commie talk.
Yeah, that's the only problem I have with the wealth tax is enforcement. Kind of like the federal jobs guarantee. Good luck, yeah. See how they can be. It's a good concept, but I don't see how you can carry it through in a timely fashion.
Right. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it would be beneficial to look into ways that, you can focus on putting guaranteeing jobs to assist with infrastructure, but at the same time, like, people's skills may not necessarily match up, and then you're going to start having holes and cracks in the way everything is run, which caters to another problem. So obviously we can't guarantee.
Yeah, you're right, but okay, so let's not go too far down this rabbit hole, because I do want to address this wealth tax. Right, I don't agree with you, boys, for the most part. I understand people are going to hide things. The systems are not perfect. They are already hiding things right now. That's already happening. But at the exact same time, people still know, how much the Jeff Bezos made. Right, they still know that. And the difference I have, and I'll be honest, this is where I get into a little bit more. This is where I disagree with her to some extent, but get into more of, if we want a wealth tax on individuals, I'm more for that than taxing corporations. And I'm saying, let's tax individual income and start putting caps on, limits companies can make to some extent, right? Before they have to pay taxes. And let's take companies out of this. And again, this is a somewhat of a conservative viewpoint here, honestly, which is very weird for me, again. But, the idea of if we start going to a more aggressive personal tax, especially for people that are worth money, whether they're hiding it, wherever it is, if we can figure out how to transition that over to them and stop allowing corporations to reinvest all their money and do this, and they have to be honest with it. So if they're reinvesting their money in their company, to expand or do these other things, they still have to pay some sort of a capital tax. But if you take out the majority of the taxes for corporations and put them back into people's individual wealth pocket, your wealth tax becomes more logical. And that's where I agree. If we can figure out how to enforce a wealth tax more often, you fix that, because there's $11 trillion here at stake. That's what she's saying. Do you understand? There's $11 trillion in household and out of the pocket expenses that are at stake here. And if we don't go after some sort of a wealth tax to get these people that make this type of money to pay more into the system, we're never going to fix it. You can't just tax corporations for it.
I think part of the problem is the way tax law is interpreted between corporations and personal. And I think that's where a bit of the discrepancy lies. I mean, I'm for an increased corporate tax for larger corporations simply because they are relying on the labor of more and more individuals, and they should be charged with ensuring that those individuals have access to the basic needs, shelter, adequate food, HealthCare. I think corporations should be more inclined to, or share their fair share of the burden, because they rely on the well-being of the populace in order to reach those profits. So while I understand what you're saying, I think that it kind of leaves a little bit of in the dust, kind of what I was just bringing up there.
Well, for me, I'd like to know who determines what value is. That's the biggest variable here, is to say, okay, today you wrote a song and it's worth jack shit. But in a year from, or let's say a week from now, the value quadruple or significantly increases to where now your song is used on the most popular TV show. All of a sudden, your song is worth millions of dollars. So how do you capture that increase in wealth? And then it becomes unpopular a year later. How do you determine that? What determines the value of these assets, like creativity, music, art, YouTube, whatever it is? Like, there's so many variables. Like, that's the thing I have a problem with, is how do you enforce a variable market value on a tax system that doesn't allow for variables? That's the biggest problem I have with the wealth tax. That is another reason, is then you got to prove it, and then they can just call your bullshit and say, well, I don't think it's worth that much because, blah, blah, blah. They hire a CPA and they hide the shit. The big thing, we got to close these offshore loopholes is a big one. That's where most corporate and individuals are hiding their shit. That's why Puerto Rico is a tax haven for online businesses that just move their shit to Puerto Rico, and they get the luxuries of being an American citizen living abroad in a territory that should be a state. They don't pay taxes. They pay a corporate gains tax. Is in Puerto Rico, there's no corporate gains tax. And I'm not going to take much income out of my company. So we got to lock that shit down somehow. And then how do we determine what is valuable?
So I think I agree. Okay, you're right. But again, there's a difference. Okay, so that's moving the goalposts a little bit, right? So now you're going into, well, who determines what the worth of somebody and what the worth of their services are? And I mean, I'll put it this way: when you go back to the discussion of, well, this guy has a song and he writes it and it's not worth anything today, but in 2 weeks or in a year or whatever, all of a sudden it's a new thing and everybody thinks it's worthwhile. And it's the supply and demand that causes this festering wound, is what I'm going to call it. And so, like, and I'll pick on music. I'll pick on I don't know. We'll pick on who's a famous artist right now that's made millions of dollars over the last year. One of the more popular.
Shaggy.
That wasn't me.
No, I don't think Shaggy makes any money now. I think that's wrong.
Not anymore. But he did for a very short amount of time.
All right, fair enough. So let's pick Taylor Swift, who got knocked off by Tool. But
you're terrible.
Taylor Swift. I am terrible with names. I don't care. Anyway, you're right. Taylor Swift. So all of a sudden, she's now worth multi-million dollars, right? Because of the fact that everybody wants her stuff. And so let's say you sell the song for $1, and she gets 10% of that, and that song sells to over 3 million people.
Yeah, billion.
She's now getting this dollar income because nobody is able to actually truly predict how many people are going to buy it. So they just put an arbitrary dollar figure on this service, and they're hoping they can make the most amount of money on it. And she is not going out there saying, "Well, I know I'm going to make." It's not even in music. It's not even like this actual real statistical analysis. People are just out there saying, "Hey, this is what I felt I should be paid. This is what I was paid in the past. Oh, you guys have blown it out of the water." So the difference is the value of that should go down based on the amount of people buying it, because of the fact that it's just there's no reason, or that excess income needs to be taken away from that person because they've made multi-billion dollars off of a song, And so the difference is you have to figure out how do you well balance it out so that you take that gap, that margin between somebody that doesn't know how to record music and has to work at McDonald's for a living, and the person that can record a hit single and make a multi-million dollars off one song. You have to close that gap. So there has to be some sort of an actual statistical ratio that we can use in these different things. And we can do that in corporation. Like I can walk in as a consultant and sell you my services for $10,000 a week if I want. And if you're stupid enough to pay me $10,000 a week to do what I do for a living, I would be very rich right now. I would be very rich. I would make $500,000 a year, and I could retire in 2 years.
You make a fifth of Joe Biden's son. That'd be awesome.
Oh my God! All right, we're not going down that. Yeah, we're not going down that rabbit hole. But yes, you're right. And if you look at that, right, and you look at that whole mix of things, like at some point, then you go, okay, well, Chris, this is how much your income is making over the rest of the median. Therefore, that's what your tax ratio is. So it brings you closer in alignment. It brings you a lot closer in alignment with that person that's making all that money at the bottom. And then the difference is where does that money go? Then it has to be gone to useful things, right? And this is where I actually support Andrew Yang's $1,000 for everybody. I actually support UBI, even for people that don't need the money, for the pure fact of if we figure out how to level load, now I'm using logistics terms, but if we figure out how to level load what people make and create some sort of a margin of some in some aspects, you could take that extra income that goes into the government fees, and then it can be used to redistribute to other people. And so even if they're making that, they're still they let's say they're on the higher end of that margin or that hump, they could still get their UBI on top of it, and it's still a little bit of extra cash for them. Because you can't. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. You go and finish what you're saying.
Because you can't tell me that you making a song is worth $1 million. And that's, again, we'll use Dallas Duff if he's listening. I'll use him as an example. He pointed out that you don't like baseball, don't pay money to go see baseball games, don't watch it on TV, don't do any of these other things. But they make money because of the rarity of what they can do. And I'm saying the rarity of what they can do is not that great to some extent. People elevate them. And I'm saying is, how do we knock people that are elevating them back down? My iPhone is amazing. You can see it on screen because we're actually streaming this on live right now. But, it's an awesome tool. I love the iPhone. But, at some point, does Apple need to make billions and billions of dollars off of iPhones? Probably not.
And this is the difference with paying for Medicare for all. She's saying she wants to tax the ultra wealthy. You're talking maybe like 7 families, literally.
I don't know.
That's the numbers Bernie's using.
All right, that's fair. Bernie is using that, yeah.
Yeah, so she's very, very chameleon-like when it comes to Bernie stuff. She's really a Bernie borrower. So I'm gonna use her. Yeah, I'm gonna pick on her a little bit. So let's say it's 100 families that are the ultra wealthy. And then there's just the wealthy. They consider wealthy. It's like 400 families. The number I've heard used as well on this point is the wealthiest are about 400 families. So those 400 families are going to fight at every way to hide every asset they have, to devalue, to pull the old Trumpski, to devalue everything, when it comes time for taxes, and then to inflate value when it comes time to borrow against that to grow their business, their empire, whatever. And that's what I mean by, if you're Mark Cuban per se, you're one of those people. Mark Cuban's one of those people. He's a multi-billionaire because he made software for a phone. And then he's grown off of that significantly because he's a brilliant businessman with the Mavericks and all that bullshit and vending and everything he does. So Mark Cuban is not just going to go, you got me. He's going to find every tax loophole. The system is the problem, not the individual. Mark Cuban is not the problem. It's the system that we allow all these goddamn tax loopholes. Stop trying to go through tax loopholes and do a value-added tax. If Mark Cuban makes more money with the Dallas Mavericks this year because they won the NBA championship, that value is going to be added, and we put a 10% tax on that value at every step. And now people say this is a regressive tax because it is a sales tax when it comes right down to it. But you can make it where it's only on certain lavish items like a fucking yacht or a boat or another house or whatever, like a second home. The VAT can be, I guess you'd say, modified to not penalize people like us who are just buying fucking food, man, and shoes and clothes for our kids. Like the VAT captures that money at every step of the way. They can't hide it overseas. We have documents that say you paid $150,000 for this new boat. Now it's going to cost you $165,000 because you got to put 10% VAT on that thing. And there's $15,000 on one transaction that can be captured also in a touristic type of way too.
Yeah. Okay. So
have multiple homes in our country from other countries, like foreign governments that buy property here will also have to pay a value added tax.
All right. So let's, before we go too far down this rabbit hole, I agree with you. And so does Elizabeth Warren. And Boyce, I want to say this. I just want to make sure you could criticize the hell out of this. I mean, that's the whole point of this discussion, right?
Yeah,
I'm not sold on Elizabeth Warren. You know, I think there's a big debate between Warren, Bernie, and even Andrew Yang, to be honest with you at this point. Like, he has a lot of value add. He's just very undervalued, and I don't know how well he's going to fare in the defeat Trump market, right? That's going to be the bigger issue is, can he actually hold up Trump? But that's a discussion for a different podcast. One I think that you're going to be hosting here in the next couple of weeks.
Well, I think you got to put Pete Buttigieg in there now too, because he really has a presence in Iowa. He really is fourth on that list now.
Yep, fair enough. Yep, and it's kind of funny because Elizabeth Warren kind of calls Pete out without saying his name, because essentially he wants to have Medicare for all, but he wants to keep private insurance an option, right? And it's just, it doesn't work.
Too.
I know, it just doesn't work though, man.
Sure,
but anyway,
it is right now.
It is, and the private insurance doesn't work right now.
Let me correct myself. It is not working right now. So there's people not being covered.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because if you look at my personal life, I'm not legally married. I cannot give insurance to, my partner, or, I could give it to my kids, but not my partner, right? Until we legally get married, which is just is a bullshit loophole. But if I do that, my company insurance is $500 a month with a $4,000 a year deductible.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Mine
because
too.
I don't work for a very large company that can, do some of these other things.
Mm-hmm.
And so before we go down that rabbit hole, because I don't think that we should do a whole episode just on Medicare for all, honestly. That'd be a great little topic to dive into. I agree. In 2 weeks, maybe we'll do that. Let's schedule that for 2 weeks. I agree with you. Because because for me, that's the bigger point, is how do we get, for me, that's bigger than almost any of the other topics. Like, if we want to talk about one topic voting, for me, that's bigger than UBI personally, is Medicare for all.
Well, to me, UBI is pointless without Medicare for all. Why are we going to give you money to pay the fucking companies for medical insurance or medical care that is inflated? It's stupid.
Yes.
You're taking the money from us and then giving it back to these motherfuckers again. It doesn't make any sense. There's no point in UBI if you're just going to give it to the fucking companies that overinflate their prices for prescriptions or whatever the fuck it is, or an MRI.
Exactly. And exactly. Now, we can get to that in a minute. I want to go back. I want to go all the way back, though. I want to go all the way back to where you're saying, hey, we have all these tax loopholes. We should be doing this. I don't like wealth tax. She actually addresses that in here. She actually addresses, she says there's a 15% tax gap between what is collected in taxes and what is actually owed based on under-enforcement of tax laws, tax evasion, and fraud. So she actually proposes changing those laws. And that's why, you know, I know you don't like the wealth tax, and that's fine, and we can argue about that to a great extent. But the difference is when you're saying, hey, they need to do these other things, she's actually proposing they do several other things inside of here to say, hey, hold on, stop this. She wants to get rid of the slash to the IRS budget. She wants to increase the IRS budget, right? Because there's a certain organization that came in and slashed it, right? Probably for good reasons, because he doesn't want his tax return out there.
Good reasons for them.
Yeah.
CYA.
Exactly. She, you know, so there's that. She wants to show third-party reporting, and she wants to let third-party reporting become more prominent. She wants to expand it because of the fact that third-party reporting has been demonstrated to get rid of tax reporting by other organizations, right? Again, and that's a capitalist idea. If you let these smaller dogs come in that want to make a bone and make money, and they can demonstrate how people are being fraudulent with their money, and we start listening to them, you can fix that. She also wants to strengthen the enforcement of the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, right there, which is one of them that you were brought up earlier.
Yep, I like that.
You know?
Yeah, I need to read her entire thing, because I want to compare hers and Bernie's, and Pete, if he ever fucking has a single detail in his policies. He doesn't.
You're right, he doesn't. He has nothing.
No, he's all platitudes. We're bad. Let's be good. I'm Pete. You know, vote for Pete. It's just fucking bullshit. Bernie has policies. Elizabeth Warren has policies. Yang has policies. Harris is just orange man bad. Fuck all that. Seriously. I was at the goddamn Liberty and Justice. I got to listen to their speeches. We actually counted out loud every time someone like Joe Biden come up, blah, blah, blah. Every time they mentioned Trump, we'd stick our hand and be like, 1, and the entire Andrew Yang section would yell out the number 1 up to however times they mentioned Trump. To bring out the point, they're more worried about Trump than the actual policies. What the hell are you going to do? Stop worrying about Trump. Let's get the policy done.
Well, we had that remember we had that discussion on the show when you first joined us back in July. We talked about that, right? And the reason they're doing that is because it's more airtime, right? Yeah, it's more airtime. That's all it is. You and I both know that it's BS and it's ruining the debate sector. But unfortunately, you have a broken system that allows for that debate sector. It allows for them to do that, and people are supporting it. And people buy into easy platitudes. You're right. People like Pete because of the easy platitudes. I don't like Pete at all. I don't think he has very good ideas. I don't think he's very founded. And I don't see him. I don't think he would be a bad president. He's definitely not going to be worse than Trump. But I don't see him as actually selling us any more than a corporate illusion. You know, look at Beto. Beto dropped out because he's just a corporate illusion. That's how I see. That's how I see Pete Buttigieg. And then I think of that song where I want to go Buddha, 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 Judge, Buddha, Buddha. I don't know why. I just can't help myself. Damn it, buddy.
You're welcome.
Well, to me, like, I want Pete to be a better candidate, but he just isn't.
No, he's not.
How awesome would it be to have the first openly gay president? That'd be awesome as a country to have us represented by something that's been downtrodden for, forever. And same thing with a minority woman. Like Stacey Abrams would be awesome if she's a good candidate because she represents what I like to see in our country of a minority getting a fair shot in a system that's not very fair. But Pete just doesn't check the boxes for me. He's just, like you said, he's platitudes, orange man bad, meat good, him bad, back and forth. And then he get cheers in the crowds. Yay, Petey. What the hell is your plan? So that's something I'm going to be doing is just fine-tooth combing their shit and comparing them. Another
thing I want to point out real quick is so there's a lot to this. And I guess I should have given you guys a link ahead of time, but before this, but there's a couple other things in here that really, that touch on what you were talking about. You talked about the loophole, right? This big loophole thing.
Yep, depreciation of assets right there. Yep.
Yeah, right in here, she's talking about proposing to institute a country-by-country minimum tax on foreign earnings of 35%. Right? Trump wants to say, "Hey, bring everything back," but what he doesn't look at is if people are still going to hide their money. So let's say Trump's idea of bringing jobs back to the United States is good, and we're not going to debate whether this is good or bad right now because it's not worth our time. But he's saying, I'm going to bring all this stuff back. I'm going to increase production in the United States. I'm going to make America great again by doing this. But if corporations are still allowed to hide their taxes, if individuals are allowed to hide their money that they make, overseas, it doesn't fix anything. They're not paying more taxes. We're paying more for a product. They're making more wealth, or maybe a little bit less wealth even, but they're still hiding all their money. So what is the gain other than it puts a few more people employed? You're talking about looking at a lower end gain here. And it's like, again, you could say I increased jobs 100% over what they were. But if you increase jobs making a minimum wage or just above a minimum wage, what have you actually done for society? What have you done for anybody?
Nothing's changed. Just your potential for revenue increases because you have a broader net.
That's it. And if you look at the different business models, I've taken business classes. I have a business degree, right? When you look at what they teach you in these different models, right? They talk about, you could be the business that sells a little bit at a high margin because you have a high quality product. You could be in the middle, or you can be like a Walmart and sell all this cheap crap at a very low rate, make a very low margin, and you can just win it all out. Yeah, volume. And that's what sells. And I don't disagree with any of those business models, but America should not be employing people on the last one. We shouldn't be employing people on pay everything a little bit, sell a whole bunch, and think it's going to boost America. Because I'm telling you, it's not boosting the worker. The worker has more output. They sell more things. But is their salary going up according to your profits? If your profits are raised 20%, is each one of your bloody workers getting a 20% raise every year? You start doing that, you'll change America.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Sorry, now I'm on a soapbox. That's what Hannah would be saying right now. Hannah would be lecturing me about my soapbox. I'm sorry, I'm monopolizing the discussion.
No, but this is what needs to be talked about. I really need to read this, though. I see some good points in there. That I need to
and yeah, that was the whole point of this, though, right? Is that she hasn't given us a full 200-page plan, but she's given us a small taste with some actual proposals from somebody that has known what she's doing to actually tell you, hey, this is what we're looking to do. Now you tell me why I'm wrong to some extent.
Well, that's what I'm waiting for, is more people to come out with more detailed plans like this. Like, Bernie's is just the same as hers, just tax the shit out of the wealthy, period. But Bernie also admits the truth that he is going to raise taxes on the middle class to pay for Medicare for all. It's impossible not to. I think Elizabeth Warren's just a little more disingenuous when she says she won't increase the burden, which means you're going to save more money than you spend, which means I'm going to tax you a little bit still. That's why I have a hard time with Elizabeth Warren's disingenuous approaches, where she won't be honest like Bernie. Bernie goes, yes, the taxes on the middle class will go up, but your out-of-pocket will go down more than you pay on the taxes. And she says, I will not increase this and that. She won't just come out and say it, and Bernie will. I respect Bernie for that.
Right, and aren't healthcare costs like the biggest reason why Americans end up going bankrupt? Yeah. Is just they have one emergency
I think it's
healthcare visit.
I think it's 400,000 bankruptcies a year for medical reasons.
Yeah, and I hear that, and I sit there and I go, how the hell has your country not folded? I know my healthcare, like our system is a lot better, and maybe when you guys do your deep dive on Medicare for all, I can talk about the Canadian system a little bit and its strengths and weaknesses. But like I've gone to the hospital because I had food poisoning just to deal with that, and I didn't get saddled with a bill. I went in, I got seen, I got talked to, recommendations, whatever, and then I left. I didn't have to end up paying to go get that medical help. It was just a simple preventative. I wanted to get a doctor's opinion to see if maybe I should hospitalize myself, or if maybe my organs were dissolving or something, But I was able to do that and have that preventative medicine. And that preventative medicine, I think, is one of the biggest differences that I've noticed anyways between Canadian and American healthcare, is that in Canada, we can go to a doctor if we're sick and not go bankrupt, whereas in the States, it's a matter of you've got to tough your way through it, or you've got to hope like hell that you're paying. And even friends of my wife and I that we met while we were down in Cabo San Lucas, he was saying, he goes, 10% of my income goes to paying for my family's health insurance plan. Now he makes good money himself, so he's not worried, but he goes, I pay about $20,000 a year for my family to have healthcare coverage.
What? Where?
Holy crap.
In California.
Holy shit balls.
But that's what, the coverage for the private health insurance, right?
Well, that's the thing. Like, I want to dive into those types of numbers where I think like single payer healthcare is the objective eventually, no matter
Absolutely.
what. We want the goal of single payer healthcare, so we have leverage against the pharmaceutical companies and the medical companies that say, listen, the MRI is worth $1,400 if it's charged to Blue Cross Blue Shield, but it's only $400 if it's Medicare. What the fuck is this all about?
Well,
what's the true value?
Weren't prices originally artificially inflated just because insurance companies didn't want to pay out, like these paltry 33-cent claims or whatever? So prices had to be inflated.
It's bartering.
Which is absolutely disgusting.
We've allowed it and
encouraged it even.
Well, we've financed it. That's for sure. So that's a big problem I have with Medicare. Period. Not
right.
Medicare, but the private industry is gouging us for eons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They've been doing it for too long, and it's time to outcompete them with a government program that will just push them right out. That's why I like the idea of using the market to just flush them out.
And I would agree with you on that.
Now that's the difference between Bernie and like everybody's getting mad at Andrew Yang for saying he adopts Medicare for all, but it's not Bernie's Medicare for all, single payer. But Bernie's Medicare for all, even in his own plan, takes 4 to 5 years. Yeah, and Bernie's plan goes from 65 today, and Tanner's
in
and out here.
No, I'm
here. You guys
here.
got to bear with us here. He's got a hotel.
I'm here. Sorry, I'm here.
Woohoo!
I pulled myself out of the stream for a second so I could pour it.
Okay.
But you don't need to see the Jack on the screen. But I agree with you though. Like I agree wholeheartedly with you. I think the difference becomes, I don't know. I agree with you in the fact that it feels sometimes like Elizabeth Warren is missing the point on some of this stuff. Right? And I agree with you that Bernie basically kind of tells everybody how it is, where it's going to be, and it's kind of that. Again, the problem I have is that, some of me wonders if Yang is taking a different route only for the pure fact of being different. Like saying, hey, look, I have something a little bit different. I have something different to offer. Or if he truly thinks that way. And that's for me, that's the larger concern. And you know what I would love to see is if you support Medicaid for all and you don't support, or you support private insurance, and they should have a separate debate just on that. Because Absolutely. I think that's a big enough topic that sells me as a voter. Period.
Well, here's the thing. CNN had a town hall on climate change. Right? Remember that one?
Yeah.
20 people. What are we waiting for? Let's do this shit with Medicare for all or any sort of healthcare plan. Everyone comes to the table. Bring your statistics. Bring your references. Bring your math. Bring your fucking heart. And show us the numbers, man.
That is pretty cool hat, man. That is pretty cool hat. I'll tell you.
Free progressives and the Yankster. But this is a free hat from an Australian dude in Australia. Because he can't contribute to the campaign, but he can give away material.
Now get me a hat. I'll wear that hat. Hat. I just like that hat. Like, I really like that hat.
Love the math, bro. But the world is waiting for us to make a decision. with Donald Trump in this campaign. And we're a huge fucking domino. And they're just waiting on us. And they're hoping that we can install something like UBI and Medicare for all. Because like I said, UBI is fucking pointless without Medicare for all, period. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But I really do think we should do a town hall, all 8, 10, 12, whatever, whoever wants to come in there and run their mouth. Bring your shit, though, because you're going to get embarrassed if you don't bring your statistics by the ones that do.
You know what I'm saying? I'm saying, look, the way I see it is, let's get it down to like 6, and then let's have that conversation. Let's dump down to 6. And
there's only about 8 or 9 right now as it is. That's qualified for November. So we're already down.
I know, but the last debates were just awful to watch. Again, they're awful to watch right now. I'm sorry. Like, they just are. Like, people don't get the same time frames that they should be getting. People are utilizing Trump's name to invoke extra time. People are using other candidates' name to invoke extra time. Yep. You know, I mean,
that's why a town hall is superior to a debate. You get 20 minutes.
Fair enough.
Say it, get the fuck off the stage. You get 20 minutes.
Why do you deserve to get elected?
Right. Just what's your pitch, man?
Why do you get to be elected? Not what are the other guys' boogeyman's about? Yeah. What is it you're bringing to the table? What are you wanting to do?
Yeah, this should be an I statement, as they call it in therapy. These should be I statements.
Great. So let's start having group therapy instead of debates
on stage. That'd be great. But that's why climate change as significant enough that it got a town hall meeting. Medicare should also be as significant.
Yeah, because I think Medicare affects the mental health, people's mental health, right? You know, like there's that Medicare or medical effects. You know, people not being able to get treatments for some specialized treatments. Like I had a friend whose daughter, had brain cancer, and they had to go to experimental places, and they were outrageously expensive. And it's disgusting that, the probability of her living is very low, but at the exact same time, why would we not want to go to some of these experimental things? Why would we not want to offer that to some extent to some of these people that may be good candidates? And I'm sorry, and maybe this is a little personal and biased for me, right? Because to me, she didn't deserve to die. To me, this family doesn't deserve to have to see that happen. Anybody losing a kid, that's heartbreaking to me.
Yeah, my biggest fear.
Exactly. Right. And maybe it's selfish of me to say I hope I die before my kids, just for the pure fact of I don't know how to put all of that together. But the difference is why would we not have options available for people that want the bloody options? And again, how else do you do that without providing a larger healthcare system, removing some of the capitalist intent to it, and allowing for a more science-based discussion around the analysis of the numbers, right? Let's be frank about it. And global warming, you're right, that's a huge problem. I don't disagree. But at the exact same time, a bigger problem is healthcare in the United States for Americans. And maybe Keith's lucky because he's not from, America. And maybe I'll be moving to Canada soon.
Yeah. No shit.
But I'm sorry. Healthcare is a crisis right now. There is a crisis in America over healthcare, and if we can't see that, we are blind. And it goes all the way from people being homeless to veterans not even be able to need to get, correct healthcare services. That's a huge one, and to people not being able to afford insurance. Again, my son has to have ear surgery. There's I don't know. The thing is like a $5,000 or $6,000 quote. Luckily, he's at the end of the insurance cycle, and the deductible was hit. So it's only going to be $500 to $1,000 for me out of pocket. But you tell me what person that works in the lower middle class spectrum has $1,000 sitting around to pay for it?
Not me.
Yeah, I have it only because I save my money to buy a blood or to put stuff into my house, and we've scraped. We've scraped very hard. We don't eat out a lot. We cook a lot of meals at home. I'm a discount buyer. I haven't bought clothes but once every 2 to 3 years. We do hand-me-downs, Christmas gifts, stuff like that.
Minimalism works.
Yeah. And I won't say that I'm 100% minimalistic because I do own a Mac and I do own an iPhone. But at the exact same time, there's there's a lot of things that we do to sacrifice to make sure we're able to pay those medical debts. And I don't, if my son has to have a second surgery after the beginning of the year, it's going to cost me a bigger fortune.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. Should you be dependent on a calendar? Like because of Julia?
No.
Doesn't make any fucking sense.
No. But they do that. Yeah, exactly. Because of the out-of-pocket costs and because of the cost of the medical procedures that have to happen, there needs to be better regulation. And again, the funny thing, again, we go back to libertarians don't want all these regulations, but I don't know how else to control certain types of costs, certain types of capital gains. I don't know how to control that without regulation. And I'll welcome, if anybody wants to message me, you're welcome to send me a message on Facebook at Christopher Tanner at, I don't know, I'm Christopher Tanner 98. Christopher Tanner 98 at Facebook.com. That's, I think, is what it is, actually. But you're welcome to send me a bloody message that if you want to join the show, if you have an idea from a different perspective that says, how can we pay for this, or how can we stem, so that capitalism doesn't overrun like it's doing right now, I welcome you. Let's have that conversation.
Capitalism runneth over.
There you go. That's the new title of the show, I guess. I don't know. We've been at this for almost an hour and a half. Yep. And so I think we've exhausted the topic. I agree with you, boys. I think we need to have another discussion, and maybe we should start petitioning them to do a town hall so that we don't have to have that discussion, so the candidates have it, right?
Yep.
And again, the funny thing is a lot of people are going to say, well, what if I'm not a supporter of the Democratic Party? What if I'm an independent, or what if I'm a Trump supporter? Well, you deserve a voice too. And I think, boys, you're going to be doing something on your show coming up here in the next couple of weeks where you're going to bring on people from different perspectives. So, and I have a recommendation I'll give to you offline. There's a buddy of mine that is a little bit more eloquently speaking than other people are. And I think he should be invited to the show, because if he wants to join as a Trump supporter, I think he brings intellectual discussion to the table, and I haven't had him on our show in a while. So I think it would be a good conversation with him.
I'm trying to get, what I like to do is maybe 3 guests at a time, just like this here, but 3 separate guests where we'll bring up the topic of Medicare or just healthcare in general, and just, okay, you're a Biden supporter, you're a Warren supporter, you're a Bernie supporter, Castro, Tulsi, whatever. And just, okay, we're going to focus on, do your damn research or don't come on my fucking show. I'll just mute your ass, kick your ass out. It's just, don't waste my fucking time being just soapbox bullshit. Bring some statistics and do your fucking math.
Whoa.
Or don't come on my fucking shit, because I ain't got time for it. I'm doing my research. Do your fucking research. Don't waste our time. We can have a legit discussion.
Exactly. And I think I like the idea of the roundtable, and I'll actually be happy to support it, because I'm probably your far left socialist discussion point. I'm probably farther left than even Elizabeth and Bernie, to some extent on a lot of different issues,
But you commie.
Yeah, a little bit there. Yeah, I kind of am. And a lot of people will call me crazy for that. I won't deny some of that.
I will.
Yeah, I know you will.
Hippie speak. Send the troops back to Nam.
There you go. But anyway, either which way, as we wrap the show up, let's wind down the show. Boys, where can people go find you if they haven't been listening to the last 10 episodes that you've been on?
Yeah. Everything's on Mindful Skeptics, man. Mindful Skeptics podcast on all the major social media. It's all the same thing. Mindful Skeptics podcast. And we got some people chiming in here now, guys, at the last second.
Yeah.
What?
We do. So
I see. My bad. But yeah, so just Mindful Skeptics podcast. I'm easy to find. And my name's Boyce Littlefield. You can DM me on any platform you want. I'm easy to find. Boyce Littlefield's an odd enough name. It's not hard to find me.
You were a very odd fellow, so I will admit to that.
I earned it.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you all for joining us. We actually will have 2 releases this week. This will be our first release that we release. Well, if you're on Facebook, you're getting the release now. I'm not taking it down, so all the flaws and everything are in it. We will work at getting better. That's partially my fault. It's not your fault. It is my hotel Wi-Fi, in fairness. Especially because the stupid thing remembers a password from a week ago and then halfway through our broadcast, every time without fail, it literally tells me to enter a new password and disconnects me every single bloody time. So I got to figure out how to fix that. But with that being said, we will have a second release of the show, or a second part of the show that we'll be releasing later in the week as well. And then next week, we're going to be, we'll probably finish up by talking a little bit about some of the elections, some of the local elections that happened in the United States this week, as well as the Canadian elections that we have neglected to talk about for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, it was one of those things.
Yeah.
I really just had numbers, so
Yeah, you were unburdened there.
I was burned out.
We've got to compel people to get out there and vote on the local elections. Let's flip every state internally first. Before the general election, flip everybody's state house and Congress. Just go vote blue.
Exactly. And hopefully nobody goes back and listens to ICP because Boyce almost had a mechanical meltdown this week, so I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, thank you all for joining us on Cellar Door Skeptics. It has been an amazing time talking to you all. We will try and do more of these live Facebook things. We'll be looking into the new software that we've piloted tonight going forward in the future. Some of me says it's kind of cool to be live on video again. We haven't done that as Cellar Door Skeptics in a while. And again, I talked to Hannah tonight about figuring out how he can join us again for live video streams at some point, even if it's from his bloody phone. So anyway, thank you all for joining us, and have an amazing night, and we'll see you all next week.
Gang, gang. Ended. Yes. Not bad, right?